So today we are going to be discussing the news of the Chiefs franchise tagging Orlando Brown. Now, many people, including myself, their first thought was probably, thank gosh this happened. We need Orlando Brown on the team. We're very, very excited that we for sure are going to have Orlando Brown on the team next season. Now, for the short term, we love it. It's a great thing. We know we're going to have Orlando Brown. Now, for the long term, for the future, that can get to the point where it's a little bit hairy for the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, I feel like, are in a situation where they kind of have to get a long-term deal put out for Orlando Brown because they spent the bag to get Orlando Brown. They traded away a whole bunch of draft picks, including a first-round pick, to get Orlando Brown. So that means the Chiefs they've already invested a whole bunch of their draft capital into one guy. So I think the Chiefs obviously see first round draft value in him. That's why they don't have their first round pick, because of that. So just for how much they gave up to bring in Orlando Brown, I think it's safe to say that for the short term, the franchise tag, it's awesome. We're very happy that he's back. But for the long term and how much they gave up, I think the Chiefs definitely, and for Orlando Brown's sake, they definitely want to work on a long-term extension because let's face it, Orlando Brown is a fantastic left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is amazing, and he is one of the key pieces that have helped this offensive line turn into one of the best in just one season. I mean, you can credit goes to Brett Veach for just dropping everything and just went balls to the wall for this offensive line. I know, that's a bit of a weird way to put it, but that's what Brett Veach did. He was like, this offensive line was so bad in the Super Bowl. And I bet Brett Veach, leading that entire offseason after the Super Bowl, he had nightmares left and right. I know us as fans had nightmares. And I don't think Brett Veach, the front office, they don't want to see that ever again. So maintaining this offensive line, I think, is going to be a top priority any time that it does come up in the offseason. Because you're protecting the best quarterback in the NFL, and the Chiefs are also investing a lot of money into the best quarterback in the NFL. So it's not just the offensive line that has to be good. They have to be great because the Chiefs are investing a lot of money into Patrick Mahomes, rightfully so. I'm not complaining about the money. The Chiefs are, other than the Frank Clark contract, I think that's just off the top of my head, but right now I think the money dispersion, I think, is pretty damn good for the Chiefs. But for how much they're paying Mahomes, they need to spend a lot of money on the offensive line. But the offensive line, I thought it was slow to get going this past season, but once it got going, it couldn't be stopped. It was 5 new offensive linemen: Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Andrew Wiley, Lucas Niang, those guys who played, on and off all season. But that offensive line is perfect. Like, the weakest side of the Chiefs line is that right guard spot, if you ask me, or the right tackle spot. I'm sorry, the right tackle spot is probably the worst, or the weak side of the Chiefs. And I even thought Andrew Wiley, Lucas Niang, they held their own to the point where, and they're not on Mahomes' blind side. Orlando Brown is on Mahomes' blind side, so they need to protect Mahomes' blind side as much as possible because we don't want him getting killed and just whacked and shellacked all the time. So I think that side of the line needs to be focused on more than the right side because Mahomes has enough athleticism and wear in the pocket to get out of situations where he doesn't want to be in. So the right side of the line isn't necessarily my biggest worry with Patrick Mahomes. Now, that might be a silly take, but I would much prefer the left side of the line be much better than the right side because I have full faith in Mahomes to get out of trouble if he does. But Andrew Wiley, Lucas Niang, I definitely think they held their own. So this offensive line as a whole, credit to Brett Veach. He completely changed the offensive line that was hot garbage in the Super Bowl. And this offensive line is fantastic. I mean, I have no issues with it. But back to Orlando Brown, I think it's safe to say he's earned a long-term contract. Again, he's came in, helped an offensive line that was garbage, and turned it into one of the best in the NFL. He's only 25, so if the Chiefs can get a long-term deal, they're going to have, I guess, a franchise offensive lineman for years to come. And I think anybody will be happy to have a franchise offensive lineman. I mean, they had Eric Fisher for the longest time. He was there, led the Chiefs and getting really good on the offensive line. I mean, the Chiefs didn't draft Orlando Brown, but they did draft Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. So, I mean, there's 3 guys right there that the Chiefs, I'm sure, would love to have for the long term. But Orlando Brown, that type of guy, he might be worth a lot of money in the future. So I think right now is definitely the time to get Orlando Brown his money so we can secure him for at least a foreseeable future. And just as a whole, keeping this offensive line intact, they gave up the fourth fewest sacks in the entire NFL at 28. So I mean, I think anybody would take this offensive line every single day. I don't even think anybody was arguing that. There's really no point in arguing that. And if you are, I think you're kind of crazy. Because this offensive line, Mahomes, he has all the time in the world to throw the football, do what he needs to do in the pocket. I do think Mahomes needs to learn to take what this offensive line is giving him, and that's a lot of time and protection, because I felt like times this past season Mahomes got a little bit antsy because of the Super Bowl, and he was leaving the pocket way sooner than he should have when he had more than enough time where he could have just stepped up, made the throw. So I thought Mahomes got a little bit antsy, but I mean, I think it's understandable because of the Super Bowl and everything. Mahomes was literally trying his best. Like, Mahomes didn't lose the Chiefs that Super Bowl. He was carrying that team. Like, he was trying to do the most all-time carry job I think anybody's ever seen, and one guy can't do it alone. So I mean, this offensive line, again, has to be there for Mahomes. And another thing about this offensive line and giving Mahomes time to throw, it's very versatile. Obviously, this offensive line gives the Chiefs time to run their pass heavy offense, which they're going to do with Mahomes, one of the best throwers of the football in the NFL. But it's versatile because they can run the ball. Orlando Brown came from Baltimore, who's a run heavy offense. And I think the Chiefs, that's not even on the offensive line. That's something the Chiefs need to utilize more. This offensive line, I think, is set up perfectly to run the football more. So I think the Chiefs need to take advantage of the skill sets that this offensive line brings them, and they need to run the football more, utilize these guys, and just ground and pound sometimes. I mean, yeah, we love to see Mahomes throw the ball 45 times, but if he's doing that in the loss, I don't care. Like, I'd rather see Mahomes throw it 25, 30 times and them getting victories, sustaining drives, holding the ball, because I feel like with this offensive line, they can sustain drives by, running the football. And they also have the talent, Mahomes, to score a 75-yard touchdown at will at any time they want to. So there's a lot. This offensive line is very, very versatile. Now, with Orlando Brown getting franchise tagged, what does it mean for the Chiefs' future? Well, I think the first thing is they have to get a long-term extension done with Orlando Brown. This franchise tag, I don't believe, is necessary. It has to stay on Orlando Brown. That just means he's guaranteed to be on the Chiefs next season. So if the Chiefs can work out an extension anytime now, I think that should be their first priority. Their next priority, and I don't think these are in any particular order, because I think the offensive side of the ball is set. So franchise tagging Orlando Brown, I would say just get him a long-term extension, and then on the other part of the offense is just get a wide receiver. Because once those two things are set, I think this offense is set for quite a while. They're going to get a Tyreek Hill extension. You have Travis Kelce still for a few more years, who I still think, I don't see any signs of him slowing down anytime soon. You get a wide receiver too, and you have this offensive line, you run the ball more. I think the Chiefs offense, you do those two things, I think this offense is set. I think franchise tagging Orlando Brown, which hopefully leads into a long-term extension for Orlando Brown, is going to be squarely focused on the defensive side of the ball. I really do think that once they get this thing figured out, it's going to be all out on the defense. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Frank Clark, which means he's likely going to get cut because they want to save money. And they want to do everything they can to bring back Tyrann Mathieu, which is, I'm sure, on the top priority list for the Chiefs. But him wanting to test free agency, see how much money he gets, it's really understandable. But that front office appreciates him so much. And I think, it's a business at the end of the day. If the Chiefs don't have the money to pay him, obviously they can't. But they're going to try to do everything they can. And I think when it comes to the draft, they're going to have to go all out on that defensive side of the ball. The linebacking core is set, but they're going to have to go all out on the defensive line, get Chris Jones some help. They're going to have to likely draft a safety because, even if Tyrann Mathieu does come back, they're going to need depth at that position because Daniel Sorensen is not the depth at the position that you want. And they're likely going to have to get another cornerback because as good as L'Jarius Sneed is, Fenton, Ward, those guys, they're going to need help in the secondary, because as solid as I think those guys are, I think one more good solid corner is definitely going to help this secondary. It sounds like this team is far off on defense from being very, very good, possibly a top 10 defense. I don't really think it's that far. When you have Brett Veach as a GM, you have Spags, who can be very frustrating at times. When you have those things put together, I think they'll get the talent that they need. And this Chiefs defense, I think, is in a very good spot. Even though there's a lot of question marks right now, my faith, my optimism level is at an all-time high that this defense will be much better going into next season. But with Orlando Brown being franchise tag, we're all excited. We're glad to have him back. We're glad that Mahomes is going to be protected at least next season, hopefully longer. Give me your thoughts of what you think of Orlando Brown being franchise tagged, and I'll see you in the next one.